PR Connections Radio presents PR Connections Radio presents the Love of Business podcast. The love of business, nurturing the entrepreneurial spirit.
All right. So you are watching the Love of Business podcast. I'm your host, Davin Sunvik. Joined with me today is Edgar Rodriguez and Arianna Perroots. Arianna, go ahead and introduce yourself for like a quick 30 seconds to a minute, just so that the audience has a little bit of context of who you are. Then I'll introduce Edgar will introduce himself. I'll introduce myself last, and then we'll kind of go on from there from our first questions.
Okay, sounds great. So my name is Arianna Perroots, and I am the owner of Doorstep Music Lessons. My fiance and myself created this business to provide Las Vegas with the highest quality in-home music education. And we pride ourselves on teaching all instruments, all skill levels, and for all ages. So it's really something for everyone.
Rock on, Edgar.
That's awesome. And my name is Edgar Rodriguez. I am the other co-host of the Love of Business podcast. And what we do is we help busy professionals scale and grow in their businesses through business coaching.
And I'm Davin Sunvik. I'm the real estate broker of our podcast here. So a lot like what Edgar does, I just specialize on the coaching side within the real estate market. Again, I'm Davin Sunvik, and I am a co-host as well on this show. So, Edgar, you got some questions for Arianna here?
I do. So number one, Arianna, and thank you for being on the Love of Business podcast. We're excited to learn more about you, your journey, and your story. So can you share a personal, your guys' journey and what led you to start the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have always been in love with music ever since I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. It was kind of just something that I knew I wanted to do with my life. A lot of people don't have that kind of clarity, but I was kind of gifted that I was just set on this pathway. And that's the way that I really wanted to go. So I did my undergraduate in vocal performance, which basically means like opera studies, art song, that kind of thing. And then I'm pursuing my master's now in vocal performance and pedagogy. So the teaching of voice and how to teach voice teachers. And my fiance, we met at college. He was a composition major. So just a big musical family. So it's very interesting what kind of sent me on this journey. During COVID, during 2020, when everything was shut down, there was actually this Zoom, like the business of singing, like class that I was doing, which was kind of a new concept because nobody's really done that. And they were talking about, well, okay, you want to be a professional musician, but how are you going to make a living as a professional musician? What does that actually look like? Because nobody tells you. That's the crazy thing. You go to 6 years of college and nobody tells you, okay, well, when you graduate, or, what are you going to do? And she was basically talking about income diversification. I just didn't have that word yet. You have a big pie and you got to fill it all up somehow with how you're going to make a living. You're going to do some roles. You're going to do, some big performances, some teaching, some chorus things. Maybe you have a day job, and that's kind of what makes up a whole pie. So I was sitting here one day and, I've had this idea in my head for a while, and why am I waiting? Like, why do I need to graduate first, right? My fiance and
And
I have the skill set. We have the knowledge of the industry. We should do it right now.
yeah, I love that like take action kind of mindset because I was one of those kids in high school, right? I was involved in like every different thing. But then once I got into college, like I had to just like quit so many things that I was average at and just do like a few good things, you know? And the sooner you get started as, you know, as an entrepreneur, you just have more time to gain experience. So yeah, there's, in my opinion, there's no reason to wait to start a business, right? You can start at any moment in time on a shoestring budget or on a big budget and at least make progress, right? And you'll never lose out on the experiences that you'll learn along the way. So I love that mindset that you had there to get started early. That's cool.
Yeah, you also hit on something really important, and this doesn't just echo with what your industry is, Arianna. This is in business in general, right? Is that income diversification, and how are we going to make money? How are we going to pay the bills, right? And then you have to set like the bar. What does that look like? Knowing what your break even is, what does it cost to run the household? What does it cost to run the business, right? Because you have two different, but when you guys are first starting, it's learning all those fundamentals of business. And that's what makes, you know, the Love of Business such a great podcast, is that we get to learn from one another and other, you know, guests that have been on the show, and they share, you know, how this passion for business has affected their day-to-day life, right? So that's actually my next question, is how has this passion for your business affected your day-to-day life?
It's made it very busy. But it's also been really wonderful. I mean, I've started networking, I've started meeting people in the community, and I've realized that there's an even greater need for my service and for music education in the community than I even realized initially.
Yeah. You made a phrase that I don't know. I don't want to say I have a pet peeve about it, but you say you're really busy. Everybody's equally busy. Some of us are just more effective with our time, right? So really what you're communicating to the audience is being an entrepreneur has made you more effective with your time, huh?
Yes.
Awesome. There you go.
Yeah.
It's just a joke, by the way. Yeah, I get it. We all, as soon as we get a business, man, like it's not the same as a day job, right? You have different levels of responsibility.
Oh yeah. It's learning how to manage, right? Is our day-to-day life plus our business life plus what we enjoy, right? And there's a lot of fires that can happen throughout the day. It's just learning how to manage those, how to delegate those is what Davin was alluding to. Arianna, can you describe a challenging moment in your guys' business journey, and how has your passion helped you guys overcome this?
Well, I would say that one of the challenges that that we're facing is just getting ourselves out there. We're still a pretty new company, so I feel like most people don't really know about us yet. So the biggest thing that I'm overcoming is being a little bit shy. Just a little bit. You know, I'm good at talking to people once I do it, but just kind of getting over that hurdle and saying it's okay, you know, I can do it. I can make the connections, and I think that just kind of putting myself out there has been really wonderful and has brought some success to our business so far.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics, right? Is the obstacles of networking, and one of them is what you just talked about, right? Is like how do I break in? How do I get the conversation going? Because most of us, once we're in conversation, we're comfortable. But it's that initial icebreaker, right? And something that I've used in getting people excited and trying to learn more about them without asking them the one question that we all hate to answer is, what do you do, right? Because if you go to a networking event or you go to a social gathering, you're going to get asked that question multiple times. So what are different ways of asking that question, right? And for me, the one that I like to lead with is, hey, Arianna, what are you most excited about in 2023? Right? And that gets them excited about what is actually happening in their journey right now. Or, hey, how was 2022 and what are you looking to change into 2023? Right? Or, hey, have you thought about where the business is heading in 2024? Right? Because we're at the halfway point. We're in July. So now we have to start thinking about what does 2024 look like? So getting those type of questions gets people really thinking like, oh, wow, she asked really good questions. Never been asked those questions.
Yeah.
That's a
Or
really
you're
good
just,
question.
yeah, or you're just not like asked that question very often. Yeah, and so what happens is because you don't get asked it too often, you become that person that's associated with other high-level people in their network. And they're like, "Oh dang, like this person reminds me of this other person I really respect." So you kind of get to kind of borrow that respect from that other person, by standing out and being different. So, yeah. Yeah, it all works though. I mean, it's all sharpening the axe too. Like you got to get started. I think Edgar can agree with me. Like the number one thing with salespeople, right, and trying to get them out there is they're trying to sharpen the axe and trying to get the perfect pitch going and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, all right, but you've never said it to anybody, so you've never made a mistake. So you got to make more mistakes before you can worry about fixing them. So but yeah.
And to echo what Davin said, right, is trying to narrow down that perfect pitch. To me, I don't really look at it as a pitch of more of like, what value do I bring to the table, right? So think about your college journey, everything you've been through in life. You're going to have something in your story that's going to resonate with someone, right? And that's where you find commonalities, right? Like if you've traveled and you've been to a destination that somebody hasn't, or you've been to a destination that somebody has, right? So you have that instant synergy. So for me, I'm always looking for things that, how can I relate to this person, right? Whether it's sports, it's food, right? Food is the most safest subject that you could just divert into a whole nother, bring it back to business, right? In bringing that, like, hey, why do you enjoy these restaurants? How often do you get to enjoy them? If you can change something in your business for you to be able to dine out like that more, what would that be? So it's knowing how to maneuver the conversation to drive it back towards business or to get it to where you want to get to, right? And it's just like Davin was talking about, right? Iron sharpen iron. And that's hanging around people who have been out there, know what they're doing when it comes to building those relationships, right? And getting that exposure that the business deserves. Because for me, I really enjoy what you guys are doing because I was a music kid growing up myself, right? When I met you at first, I was telling you, this is something that my daughters, a path they want to head towards. I know one for sure. The other one is too young to tell. But at the same time, even though she's really young, it doesn't hurt to get her started at that age.
Absolutely.
So leads to my next question is, Arianna, what role does your business play in the community and why is the aspect important to you?
Well, I think that doorstep music lessons is playing a really big part in the community right now. Currently, we're working with several charitable foundations. We are partners with Children's Heart Foundation of Nevada. And that's a really important cause to me because my little sister actually has a heart condition. So Children's Heart Foundation has been really near and dear to our family. And being partnered with them, we're able to help make donations for them to further the research into heart conditions and to be able to make kids and members of their family just very happy when you have a difficult situation. So that's one way. And then another thing is that we are currently partnering with another organization called Notes for Notes. And I don't know if you know, but Rob Lacey works with them. And what they focus on is providing recording equipment and the knowledge of how to use it to kids to teach them how to record their songs and fuel their passions and that kind of thing. So we're working with other similarly minded organizations to promote joy in the community, to promote education, and to promote research. And those are things that we really, really value at Doorstep Music Lessons.
Now you stick with those two things right there and you'll pull on a lot of heartstrings, right? That's your story. Right. And knowing that, look, you got to own that, because if you really think about it, people can't replicate that. Right. Even if there was another organization out there trying to teach the music lessons, they can't own what you just said. And that's what's going to resonate with people, right? That's what's going to want to inspire people to, okay, you know what? That resonates with me. That's something I can get behind. That's where you become unique in the marketplace, right? And knowing that what you just shared, that's powerful, right? When you're having these conversations with people at networking events and you talk to them about why you started that, and that right there, those two hard points, that's going to send shockwaves.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. And another thing too, like, so for example, like, I think the first thing is it makes people intrigued. Like when you were talking about the Children's Heart Foundation, I was like, well, what do they do? Right. But another thing too is I think there's a really popular shift in people want to shop where their money and they can give through an organization and leverage those finances, right? Because if I can go to a business, right, and I buy a product and it costs $20, right, and I go to their competitor and it costs $20, but part of that 20 like gets put into a big pool of all the other customers, right? And then thousands and thousands of dollars gets donated to an organization. I get to kind of leverage my money, right? I get to be a part of that, a small part of that really big thing. So you give your customers an opportunity to do that when you're partnering with a lot of these charitable organizations. So it's gonna attract both on the intrigue side, but then it's also going to attract a whole market of people who are very, very socially conscious with their money. So you're going to do well with that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And think about what you said right now with the Children's Foundation, right? Is that music is an outlet, right? Music is an outlet for a lot of people. And I know I use music for me, even when I was overseas, right? And I was in Iraq. I used music to make sure my head was in the game, right? I was leading Marines. I had to learn how to navigate at a very young age, but music was one of those things. And for me, you would think it would be music that would get me hyped, but for me, it was classical music, right? Like, how do I stay cool, calm, collective, composed, and make sure that I can make sure that these Marines knew exactly what needed to be done to get the mission accomplished? But for me, it was music, right? Music was that outlet that allowed me to ground myself, keep my nerves, as calm as possible with all the chaos that was going on out there. That's something that when you were talking about it, that's what it took me back to, but at the same time in a positive way, right? Because it helped me mature at a very young age.
Absolutely. Music really has that effect on people. It can be an outlet. And not everyone who loves music becomes a professional musician, and that's fantastic because it's still able to affect you in such a way. And kids who do music are also developing better fine motor skills. Like if you're playing piano or guitar, they're probably going to be ahead of other kids in their grade who are not, with developing that hand-eye coordination. They become more expressive, better communicators. And there are also statistics that show that they do better in school and better in life. It makes them creative thinkers. It kind of changes the way that you think about things and approach problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree 100%.
When you're a musician, that they teach you a whole new way of problem solving and figuring out, okay, well, I keep messing up with this section. So first you need to know what specifically it is that you are messing up, why you are encountering that problem, and then you need to be able to come up with the solution yourself. So it's kind of creating that step-by-step process can really help people learn how to work through a whole lot of different problems too that aren't, as you're 14 and 15.
Yes. Yeah. I'd agree 100%, right? Like it does carry that influence in inspiring us to do, good things. Now, this might be a long-winded question, but I'm curious, can you share a memorable story where your passion directly impacted one of a customer in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So, let me just think about it for a minute. Sorry.
Can you share a memorable story where your passion directly impacted a customer or the community?
Yes. So there is this new customer that we have just taken on at Doorstep. And, she over the phone, she was telling me a great story of loss. And it was very, very sad. It's interesting the kind of things that people will open up to you about. Sometimes I feel like connections are just meant to be sometimes. And, her son had just lost their father, which was really, really sad. And their father loved to play guitar. And so, he wanted to take guitar lessons for himself and kind of as a memory to his father. And, the mother that I was speaking to once we got started was telling me that it's been very touching and brought a lot of like love and joy back into him. So I think that making those sorts of connections are really, really important to me. So being passionate about music education and just the way that it can help people.
Yeah. And even going on a story like that, like there's a huge discipline factor with like learning an instrument, right? And so after you've gone through it and you've progressed to it and you've started to master it, you're like, okay, all of those challenges, I'm not unique. All of those other people who have also learned guitar have gone through the exact same challenges. And so then you realize, right? So in this case, probably the child's father realized, okay, my father probably went through a lot of these same challenges, and it can really build a connection to something that you can almost go back in time, right, to a certain degree and say like, okay, it's always been this difficult, right? It's always going to be this difficult. So I've done something that my father did, and you can have a connection there, even though you can't talk to somebody directly, right? So like oftentimes there's other challenges too that we could go through in life, but yeah, music's a great way to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this will be my final question, and then we'll get us wrapped up, so we end the show on time today. But how has your business, Arianna, evolved since you guys first started the business?
Well, I think it's evolved in a couple of ways. I feel like my approach with Doorstep has been changing ever since I first started, whether it's the level of mentorship that we like to offer our teachers. So, there are other businesses that offer lessons, but something unique about Doorstep is that we want to give our teachers room to grow and resources and opportunities. So, for example, bringing in a specialist to talk about music education for children with special needs. That's something that's unique that I kind of realized we needed as we were going along. Or another thing is our community partners, like we were talking about before. That wasn't in my initial concept for Doorstep, but as I've been networking and trying to put myself out there, I've realized that it's getting into the community that is really going to help promote our message and our values. And that was something that I think I could have only figured out by doing it.
Yeah. I love what you did when you were talking about how your teachers needed additional resources, and so you brought in another expert, right? You don't always have to be the expert. And I think a lot of business owners fall into that trap that they got to be the expert on everything, because sometimes there's somebody else. And all you got to be is the source of the source, right? You don't have to be the end source. You don't have to be the end person, right? You just have to know how to source things a lot more efficiently than other people. So that creativity is something that's a really good like evolution in your business, and it's a sign that your business is probably going to be a lot more agile than other businesses. So good on you for doing that. That's cool.
Thank you.
I'll echo what Davin said, because if you really think about it, and this is a challenge for a lot of business owners. So you literally took the words out of our mouth, because it's refreshing to see, right, that most business owners are intimidated by bringing in better talent. But if you think about the billion-dollar giant companies, They source the best talent. They source talent that's better than them. And that's what keeps them at the top, right? And for you to recognize that, like, hey, my employees, right? My team members need X, and saying, you know what, let me go find it. And taking that step to go bring that into your organization, that's massive. And that's a sign of a great leader, right? Knowing that number one, you can go back to school and try to learn it, but how long is that going to take you versus saying that person's way more talented? They can bring the immediate value to the team. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's very, very good. I think that's going to be my takeaway for the day.
All right, Edgar already kind of gave it away. So Arianna, so what we do is we kind of go around. Today we have a little bit more time, so take like a full minute. Talk about, a takeaway that you got out of this discussion. Maybe even mention something that we could have asked that we didn't ask. Just give us some feedback as far as like how we can keep this conversation going in the future. And then lastly, let people know how they can contact you or your business should they be interested in music lessons or helping you grow. So I'll let you go first, then we'll have Edgar, and then I'll close us out.
Okay, fantastic. So I would say one of my biggest takeaways from today is just to actively communicate with people. If business owners are communicating with each other, we can learn how to improve our own business while also maybe offering some advice to others. I think that, a lot of people can be very protective of their business and not necessarily want to talk about it or make it personal. But I think that it's kind of, that's what's important. That's what you need to do to be able to make an impact on people. Yeah, so definitely that. And then I guess just another aspect that maybe we could talk about in the future would be like the growth that our students see after a year, the milestones. Like what does it look like after a month, after 6 months, after a year of lessons, and kind of like the longer term impacts of that on people. Just
all right, so talk a little bit more about the results. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, I can relate. And then how can people contact you?
Yes,
real quick. Yeah, how can people contact you?
If people want to contact me, you can find our website, doorstepmusiclessons.com. You could also send me an email at info@doorstepmusiclessons.com. And I'm also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things. You should have no problem.
Good deal.
Awesome. Well, I would say for me, you gave away some very valuable information, and I really hope the audience gets some really good insight, because you shared some powerful things. Number one, you shared your story, right? Knowing what foundations are near and dear to your heart and why. That's huge. And then knowing that, look, you could recognize most business owners struggle with ego, right? Because they want that power, and knowing that, hey, I know all the information. You don't need to be the expert, right? Surrounding yourselves with better talent for your team members, that speaks volumes. So those are my two biggest takeaways. Davin?
Yeah. So my biggest takeaway was how like action taking you are, right? You saw opportunities to get started sooner, and everybody has excuses why they don't get started. I mean, I literally have not found a business owner that doesn't have an excuse, right? I don't have a master's degree or whatever it is, right? But yet a lot of the successful ones just do it anyway, and they find a way to make it work, right? And that's what you've done. You've become resourceful, adaptable. You found a way to make it work. And what that does is it actually shows a way for your teachers to make it work. And then your teachers then take that can-do attitude, they take it to your students get results too. So you talked about us not asking about the results that your students get. I have no question that your students are getting results. You can contact me at davinsundvik.com. And you've been watching the Love of Business podcast. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.